Are we back? Yes, another episode right here on the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. I know you look forward to this stuff. You have it on your calendar, right? Now, you don't have to put it on your calendar if you press the subscribe and the notifications button. I didn't even know this myself because, I don't subscribe to myself, but if you subscribe and then you push the notifications, then it tells you on an alert when a new episode comes out so that you don't miss it. Otherwise, you can watch the old reruns, which is just as good. You should be watching every one of them. You know, what are we on? We're into like our second season of full episodes, and you should be over there looking at every one of them so you can learn and take notes, and there shall be a quiz at some point. We're going to have a quiz to see what you learned from the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel, other than the fact of, I collect stuff. Well, we are over here with more fun things, and it's like, where do you start? There's just, I could go anywhere and point to something, and it'll be an interesting story. I mean, there's a Bonanza shooting gallery, okay? Now, this is not the big Bonanza shooting gallery like you see on the piers. This is a Bonanza single-unit shooting gallery, and there's vinyl on it. These are vinyl for my sign making machine. This is a sign cutter, and this is how I make signs for whatever I'm doing necessarily at the store. And I have my computer over here, and I can cut my vinyl, and then I got to weed it out by peeling off the vinyl. Then you got to pick it off, and you got to stick it onto other things. So, here's extra sheets of vinyl that were cut into stuff. What does this one say? Oh my goodness, I can't even read it, but you got to pick it apart to do it in extra sheets. And there's rolls of vinyl over there because it comes on rolls. And there's also, oh my goodness, cases of ragu. What's the expiration date? August 23, 2013. So 10 years ago, I didn't finish my ragu. So if somebody out there wants a good deal on ragu, anywhere you turn, there's good stuff. Even here, look at this. It's a rubber band. Just seeing a rubber band reminds me of a story. I was in Fascination in Seaside, and we used to have these two nice ladies. They became friends because they played by us in Keensburg, and then when we went down to Seaside, they started playing in Seaside, and it was a mother and daughter, and the mother's name was Esther, and the daughter's name was Karen, and the daughter was, a little older than I, so she was no kid, but Esther was an older lady, and she was a pistol. And she smoked Benson & Hedges 100s, and she smoked like a chimney back when you were allowed to smoke inside stores. After she was done playing, she used to like to count up her Fascination tickets. And she would want to, stack them together or whatever. So this one day, she asked Chris Hobby, who was working at Fascination at the time, she wanted some rubber bands. So Chris didn't hear what she said, and he says, what? And she says, rubber bands, I want some rubber bands. And Chris was like, what? And then all of a sudden you hear Esther yell at the top of her lungs in the middle of Fascination. She'd say, rubber bands, God damn it, I want rubber bands. And Chris looked, oh my God, everybody looked. And so, it was just so funny. And so here you see a rubber band. Now, it's not the actual rubber band that Esther got from Chris, but it reminds me of the story when Esther had to scream across the middle of the store, rubber bands, God damn it, rubber bands. We got a couple gun games over here. We have Dogfight. Dogfight was my first gun game, and it came from Mondial International in Springfield. It was down the road behind Runyon Sales. He came from Mondial. How much did he cost? $250. Now, again, money is different. We're talking probably 1973 in that area. And why was Dogfight so inexpensive, even in 1973 at $250? There's always a reason. We played it in the back warehouse, and it seemed to be working. It was a black light game that had the targets going around, had tanks going across. You could hit them with the gun. It had an airplane flying around in the back. Really nice game. Got it, bought it, paid for delivery. They brought it to the house, down next to the jukebox, playing it, loving it, enjoying it. something happened that the airplane that was going up and down was going up, but it wasn't going down. So it was like it would go up, but it would stay up. It wouldn't dance around. So, of course, Randy the mechanic has to be behind the machine. Why is this happening? And when I was back there, I found that the airplane, of course, had a problem, which I was able to fix. It was a cracked PC board, which I was able to find and solder a jumper on and fix it. But I found there was a second airplane that never came up before. I didn't even know it existed. Hence the name Dogfight. It's not dogs like Rover. Woof, 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 woof. It's dogfights because old biplanes used to shoot in the air and fight amongst each other, and it was a dogfight. That's what they called it. It was airplanes fighting. So there were two airplanes that were dancing around on the background that you would shoot the one, he would pull down, shoot the other one, he would go down. But when we bought it, only one of the airplanes was working, and I didn't know that there was another one until the second one broke, and I fixed that, and then I found that there was another one down there that was not working. And why wasn't it working? The double wound motor, which was an AC motor, but it had one coil for up and a different coil for down. Rather than reversing voltages, they would switch to the other coil built in with the motor. The one coil was burnt out, so it could go up but not down, or it could go down and not up. Probably that was the more likely, because since it didn't go up at all, probably up didn't work, down worked. So it was always in a down position, you didn't know it was there. So you had to get another motor. That's all you could do. So now it's not like you can look on eBay and try to find a motor. It's back in the day, and you had to go to different distributors and try to find somebody who's got one for an old dogfight game. And we were able to order one, and it cost a fortune for that motor. It was close to $200 for that motor back then. Now, mind you, we bought the game for $250, and now it's $200 just for the motor. But you got the game. You wanted to have the motor, so you buy the motor, and now you got to put the motor in. And then, of course, I got it, and I got it in, and I got it working, and then it was even more fun because now you have two airplanes playing. So you bought it for $250, but it was a good buy. But after you spend another $200 for the motor, and then you got to do it yourself, put it in, or hire somebody like Harry Garbo back in the day, who would charge $50 to come over and adjust your pinball. He'd probably charge you $200 to put the motor in. It can run into money, so you have to be able to fix your own games. If you can't fix your own games, you're going to have to hire somebody to fix your games, and parts can be pretty hefty, and labor. Speaking about game tech, you get over here. So this is how you get into the segue of things. Over here, I was working on my most recent project, was my Black Knight pinball machine. Now, this machine I have since it was brandy new, back in Action Arcade at Keensburg Amusement Park when I first started out. The arcade was the fourth operation we started. We started with the Kentucky Derby, then it was the Kessel Fascination, became Randy's Fascination, and my mom took a Skillo. And then after 1 year of Skillo, she didn't like it, we turned it into an arcade. It was Action Arcade. And that would have been early 80s, maybe around 81 or something like that. But the Black Knight, when it came out, was one machine that we bought brand spanking new, came in the box, brand new, had to, unwrap it, put it together, and it's been with me ever since. Now, this machine almost burned down in a fire, because Action Arcade was affected by a fire in Keensburg Amusement Park in 1983. It was smoke and water damaged. It was cleaned up back then. After the fire, if you touched the side of the machine, everything was black. If you touched it, your hand stuck to it, because some sort of from the smoke or something like that, it's not nicotine like a cigarette would have, but when you're in a fire, everything in the fire area, even if it doesn't burn, becomes black. black from the smoke, and you touch it and your hand actually sticks to it. So they have a certain chemical you're able to clean it with. So that was cleaned after the fire in 1983, which put us out of business. But the Black Knight has lived again. He has played in my Big Top Carnival of Fun, multi-level extravaganza and amusement arcade museum. When I first came to Wildwood in 1996, he was there. And since that time, he hasn't been anywhere. He's been hiding here in Randyland, and I was going through some stuff and trying to, clear out some, areas to see what's buried behind, and I came across my Black Knight. So I figured, you know what? I would like to get my Black Knight working and put it in the arcade this year. So I was working on him, and I got him working, but you know what? He is now, gosh, from the 80s to now, he is 40 some odd years old. And when you have machines that are 40 years old that are computer boards, you have certain issues. Here is the motherboard and driver board for Black Knight. And this is his original board. Oop, we're losing a chip. These are program chips, and they don't need one in these two sockets, so it's not missing. But the batteries are always, we're losing chips here that I must have had laying on it. I don't want to step on them. This is a 6821 PIA. And these chips are really very important to these boards because the main processor, which should be over here, communicates to the rest of the peripherals through the PIAs. And if one PIA doesn't work, well, you're just out of luck. I don't want to bend that leg going in there. This is a little bit bad. I don't have a proper tool for straightening them. But this is a chip socket, so you're able to pull them out and change them if necessary, and that's why this is out, because I did change it. I don't want to force that in right now, so I'm not going to. But this chip here, I can't read the number, but it's probably a 7406, because I remember I had to change a 7406, so it's probably the bad one laying here. Probably another one dropped on the floor too. You can see here, these are burnt, but they're still functional. These are actually resistors that get hot. Now that should be better. See this? They actually, you see underneath here, the legs are longer, so they're raised up off the board. Typically resistors are mounted right down onto the board itself. These are raised up, and even being raised up, the board underneath it is black because these get hot. And the heat of these resistors will actually cook the board below it. That's why they're raised up, and their skin, which was their color coding, has, you can see, actually burnt off the resistors. But they're still functional. Even though they don't look good, they're functional. These also get hot, but in the application that they're using, they're not raised up off the board, so they're probably not on all the time. These are raised up, so they probably get a little more use and a little more activity on it. So they try to raise things up because of the heat situation. These are drivers, which will control the different solenoids in the machine. You have a relay which will turn on your flippers because they're going to pull a little more current on it. This board, and the way Williams did this, is connected to the main board on the top through an array of connectors. And it's actually, we're going to lose, there's that other 70. See, I told you there were two. I told you there were two. The one board actually pushes right through holes onto the other board and makes a connection to connect the two boards together right here. Notoriously, these are a problem. Your battery sockets are a problem. And there's other problems that go along with these boards too. But if this doesn't communicate well, since it has to communicate with these PIAs, if it gets a bad signal, the board's not going to work. And being pressed together doesn't mean that it's got a good connection. So notoriously, these wear out and they fail, and then the machine is unreliable. And if it becomes unreliable, it can lock on your solenoids and burn them before the fuse goes out, and then burn some transistors. Here's one burn mark over here. You can see on the board is burnt. It's just par for the course as you get older. The battery socket should have been replaced. All right, I did not have another battery socket when I was working on the board. So what did I do? This part here, I'll show you. This battery socket was done when I got it because of corrosion. You see, it's gone. It's just gone. There should be a connector here that goes right in. It's not even mounted to the board right. So I soldered to my battery. And I put my battery connection right on down to the ground where it would go, because that's not going to make connection for anything. And then I can push this back in here again. And as long as I push it over enough, it will still make enough connection to touch here and make its connection, since the other ones aren't bad, because the negative side typically corrodes and it'll bring acid damage down onto the board, which can actually travel to the different chips and cause a lot of damage that you'll be fixing. So this board is actually not bad. It's not bad at all. I don't see a lot of corrosion on it, but I know that even if it works, I can't really rely on this here because they're old. You can replace this, but when you replace it, you're still dealing with this, and you're still dealing with that, and you're still dealing with this, and it's an old board. And in a practical nature, where I want to run this in my arcade all summer long, and since I'm working alone in the arcade all summer long, I don't have time to fix it again when the next thing breaks. It has to run for the summer. So although I fixed this and this works, I went ahead and bought replacement boards, which are made currently. So inside, these are brand new boards, and they use the same system with the pin in, okay? It might be slightly different configured, but these are second market replacement boards, and they'll do the same functions in the same machines. I even replaced the soundboard, because the soundboard has a ribbon jumper over here. This is usually two boards, which I replace. Here's the original. The original one has two boards. It would go like this as it mounted in the machine, and it's connected with a jumper, and it's not anymore. It's one board that they made so it no longer requires a jumper. Now, the company that made these boards actually put in a secondary connector, which I would do myself. I thought it was a good idea. They put a plug here and a plug there, which is not original on the other boards, where I can connect a ribbon connector from here to here and jump out all of these connectors. So if these start loosening up and becoming older and not making great connection anymore, I can put a ribbon connector from here to here, and it would be parallel with this connection, and therefore I'm going to eliminate any of those problems. Interestingly enough, even though you have new boards and they're excellent, the boards are excellent, still sometimes things aren't exactly perfect. Like the hole. See the hole here? It's not matching up to the hole that's in the machine. And up here, the hole for the mounting is not matching up to the bracket completely. So one of these boards, because they're connected, I can't really pivot it, and I'm not going to put any stress on here, is not matching up properly, so they're a little bit off. I'm using one screw here to hold it. That's all that's really holding that, plus the wires and the brick here, and I'm using another screw up here to hold the board, whereas I could be using one there too. And there is a bracket underneath there, which this top one sits into, so that's pretty sturdy on the bottom. But even being new boards, sometimes holes aren't 100% perfectly matched up. It's just the way it is. I can see it's the same thing with the soundboard. It's a little tilted. Although I did get the screws in, somehow or another, it seems to be a little tilted. Be that as it may, it's functional, and the reliability is what I'm looking for. But even with a new board, sometimes things happen. As soon as I played the first game, and it hit the slingshot, the coil pulled out right here to hit that, like it does. It'll pull forward to hit by the computer, but it stayed up. It locked on. So it's not supposed to lock on. It's supposed to be a pulse. It's supposed to be hitting down, because if you stay on too long, you're going to burn the coil. So why did it stay on? Well, it didn't stay on with the other board set. It stayed on with this board set, which means there was something wrong. And what happened was, I believe it was this transistor right here, blew. Now, why did it blow? Well, you know what? They make parts. Most of this stuff is made in China. And I had the same thing when I did the credit system in Fascination. If you're going to find something that's going to fail, it's usually going to fail towards the beginning. And in this instance, the first practical hit on that blew the transistor. So there's nothing wrong with the coil. If the coil was shorted, if the diode on the coil was shorted, that would not stay energized. It would blow the fuse. In this instance, it just shorted the transistor. So it needs another transistor. I actually didn't change that yet. That's why it's still sitting here on the thing. And I don't even have to change it, because when you hit this on the rubber, it's going to bounce off anyway. It doesn't necessarily need that. So right now I simply have the wire disconnected from that, which is perfectly fine. So things happen. Then after I was playing it, I'm playing it and the machine would knock itself into game over. Well, that's weird. So I'm playing it again and it's playing for a little bit, then I would knock itself into game over. So now I'm like, well, what's causing this? Is it a solenoid? Is it the power supply? Because I did not change the power supply. Could it be that some of these solenoids are pulling with their high spike of power, that this heavy capacitor, which usually stabilizes it, could be going bad and they go bad? All right. Could that be bad? It's an 18,000 microfarad, so it's a high capacity. I didn't have one sitting here, so I ordered another capacitor just in case. I ordered a couple of them just in case. But before it came, I found that wasn't the problem. The problem was actually, remember I was talking about the 7406 chips on the brand new board. Right here, 7406, 7406. All right, one or both had a defect. I replaced them both because I had them. They're cheap. It didn't matter. But one or both of these was bad. And first I thought it was the PIA. So that's why you see I pulled the PIA off the other board to check it, because I put the one from the old board in here, and it was the same problem. So there was nothing wrong there. So it had to go back to the peripheral, which goes to my switch matrix, which I tracked down had to do with certain switches, that if I hit certain switches, it caused the machine to go into a default of game over. And it all came back to one bus line that was going through the 7406, then communicating with the microprocessor through the PIA through the bank. So even with a brand new board, something failed. And most people would send the board back and say, hey, the board didn't work. And the poor guy who makes really great boards, that sells boards to people, and I would definitely buy the boards again because the boards are very good and everything's in sockets, so I was able easily to change it. They probably get people all the time who put boards in really crappy machines, blow something, maybe they don't know what they're doing, and they hook a wrong connector and they blow something, and then they want to complain that there's something wrong with the board. In this instance, there actually was something wrong with a chip, but it was a cheap chip. The chip's probably 40 cents. So I had two of them. I swapped them out. The machine is fine. So if we have power, look at that. Now, this manufacturer put some extra lights on the boards. The originals don't have this. These are telling different power positions. And also you got here a cute little design that's actually showing you how the lights are working on the machines, computer-wise, what it's flipping on the lights. So you can actually see how it's switching on and off real fast. All the lights are on the playfield, and you see they correspond. Each one of those dots has to do with one of the playfield lights. And I would definitely recommend these boards. How much did they cost? Well, I'm not exactly sure. I'm probably into it with these three boards. I'm probably into it $800-900 as far as replacements are concerned. And I'm going to have to replace some of my digits. Why? Because you see here, I'm missing some sections. I'm missing the top here. Come on. I got the top piece here, but I'm missing a section there. It's in the third and the fourth player. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to replace all these displays with an aftermarket LED substitute. They'll look the same, but they will not require high voltage to run. I also have to change the distribution board here because that distribution board is for the high voltage type of displays. So that board will get changed and all of these displays will get changed. And since this is good, this is good, this is good, I will save them for one of the other machines that I have, including obviously the dry board, which is perfectly fine. And there's nothing wrong with the dry board as far as those displays are concerned. That's easy to tell because I can unplug one display from a bad spot and put it onto a good spot and I'll have the same problem. So there's nothing wrong with this board. This is fine, but it's going to get changed anyway. And I will change all the displays. And I could run it like this. That's perfectly fine. But at some point in the summer, if I got time, I'll change the displays. We really don't get more than 2 people playing at a time anyway. This is third and fourth player. It's not going to make a difference. So we'll get some credit on here.
The Black Knight will win again.
I love that sound. This is such a great sound effects they did on that. That background sound will increase in speed as you do better and better with your ball. I got a ball saved. I got another ball. MagnaSave. Now I want to show you on the Black Knight, when you knock down 3 targets, you light up a MagnaSave. If I knock down 3 targets, any one of the 3 groups, the 4 groups, if I knock down 3, I'll get MagnaSave. It's important to have your MagnaSave so you can save it. You press it with a separate button on the side. When you lock your balls, they're all up here. Ball 1, ball 2. If I get a 3rd ball,
Fight against the enemy.
now I'm playing with 3 balls at once. If I lose, and I'm getting triple score. See the 3? Everything is scoring triple because there's 3 balls in play. If I lose one of the balls down the drain, Now my scoring goes down to 2 because the machine knows. It's important for these games. They have to know where all the balls are. Right now, the machine knows that all 3 are in play. Notice the background sound is starting to increase for the anticipation of what you're playing. So let's score some more targets so it knows I'm still playing. It gets more excited. Getting higher pitched. Getting more exciting. If I knock down one target, it starts a timer. That's what that whoa, whoa, whoa sound is. That only gives you so long before it resets it. So if you get all 3 down in the time, you get the score, you get another Magna save. Getting more exciting. I love this game. I just got an extra ball. Magna save!
One enemy cannot fight the Black Knight again. Will you challenge the Black Knight again?
The Black Knight. Oh, you gotta love him. You gotta love him. I love my Black Knight, honest and truly. Mwah. Well, I hope you enjoyed playing with my Black Knight, and you'll get to play him this season in the Retro Arcade Tributes and Traditions, Retro Arcade and Fascination on the Boardwalk at Magnolia Avenue, 2900. Boardwalk. We'll see you then. Black Knight, we're going to say goodbye. See you next time on the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. Hooray!